Okay, so that brings us into discussion, possible action on matters emanating from executive session. Could I have a motion to approve the personnel non-union salary increases as discussed in executive session?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion by Marilyn and a second by Mr. Scully. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions?
I'll abstain because I wasn't there.
Noted that Ms. Grant abstains. That motion passes. Could I then have a motion to appoint Roni Krishan as the City Hill Assistant Principal?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Hess and a second by Mr. Solozzi. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. Roni, if you'd like to say a few words, congratulations.
Good evening, Mayor Hess, Chairman Litkey, Vice Chair O'Donnell, board members at large, Superintendent Montini, Assistant Superintendent Cooney, and members of the Borough of Naugatuck community. 1 to 2 years ago, I could not have imagined that I'd be starting the school year in a new school district, but here I am. And I am here because continuous improvement requires the courage to change. I come to the Naugatuck public school system as a well-seasoned, highly qualified educator. I am entering my 21st year as an educator with 9 of those years as an assistant principal. I'm well-versed in curriculum, middle school instructional experience, and school-wide systems for school improvement that are aligned with our school and district vision. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Chairman Litkey, his fellow board members, Superintendent Montini, and Principal Mezzo, and the interviewing committee of stakeholders for giving me the opportunity to continue to diversify my growth as a school leader in the Naugatuck public school system. Chairman Litkey, Vice Chair O'Donnell, Superintendent Montini, and Principal Mezzo, thank you for the time that you took to meet with me to engage in informal and the most meaningful conversations around our and your passion, drive, commitment, and enthusiasm for education and education in the Naugatuck public school system. It is truly these conversations that help me to solidify my decision. You are all presented as down-to-earth, genuine, unassuming, good people who love your community. I connect with leaders like you. All of you, and I want to stay engaged. Finally, to the most important people in my life, my crew over there, my family, to my husband, Robert, my children, Roman, Farah, and Barron, I love and appreciate all that you do every day to support me. And thank you for your unconditional love and patience. Thank you.
Congratulations. That then brings us into public comment. If there's any member of the public that would like to offer public comment, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Dorothy Nath Coonan, 40 Donovan Court. I stand before you today in reviewing some of the new policies that came out today. One of the things I looked at was the policy for facilities. And there's a reference in there about no smoking, no vaping, no tobacco. And I'm just wondering, I don't see a whole lot of signage saying that there's no smoking. And also at graduation, there were several graduates smoking cigars in the middle of the field. And, perhaps maybe a warning or announcement saying no smoking is allowed on these premises would be good, because it would have been pretty expensive had something happened and somebody had set fire to the field or something. So just, something to be mindful of. And then also, I'm just kind of curious, and I don't know, is there a specific or a dress code that is available that talks about administrators or staff dress codes as they dress, as an example for students? In the dress code, it's kind of talking about the various things that kids should do, shouldn't do. And then my other point was, is the policy going to be consistent across all schools? Because in the past, there have been issues where one student was sent home and another student dressed the same way was allowed to stay. So, my thought was, if, this policy is only good if everyone follows it the same way, so that there's no discrimination or, preference of one student over another. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Holy short people around here. I'll just do this. Okay, good evening. My name is Dan Sheridan, 32 General Dalton Drive. As with Dorothy, I took the time to read some of the attachments that were on today's agenda, and I noticed two items concerning purchasing. Some of you know, but most of you may not know, that I have extensive purchasing background in industry and two top purchasing positions in two major companies. So I speak with a level of a lot of knowledge on that. The first comment has to do with purchasing procedures. Overall, I think it's a good document, but it's missing a clearly defined delegation of authority table indicating dollar approval level. That's key to any purchasing policies and procedures. By that, I mean you should clearly delineate by position, not by name of person, but by position, the amount of authority they have. There's bits and pieces in there, like I think it seems to imply that the Board of Ed has $10,000 and up. Perhaps the superintendent has $5,000 and up, but it's not really clear. It ought to be very clear. If it's above a certain level, Board of Ed is this, superintendent is this, assistant superintendent, business manager, purchasing agent, and anybody else by position that you wish to have delegated authority. And only those people are approved to enter into documents with vendors. Other people are not supposed to be doing purchasing. And by having that out there and being very clear, you have something that you can rely on to enforce policies and procedures, so you don't have rogue purchasing going on. The second document has to do with the P card. It's called purchasing card in the document, but it started off as a procurement card. And I've done 3 major implementations of procurement cards, one of which wasn't too good. So I'm speaking from experience in terms of things to watch out for that you might want to incorporate in your policies and procedures. First of all, it can be a really good thing if it's done properly. If it's not done properly, you can get a lot of rogue purchasing going on, small dollar items, and money not efficiently spent. Some lessons learned: have a policy in place and approved by the Board of Ed, and it's the Board of Ed's responsibility before rolling out a P card. Don't roll out a P card before you have a policy and procedure in place that's approved by the Board of Ed. A code of conduct that's listed is not enough. There needs to be significant penalties up to dismissal and legal action for misuse. You can get some pretty wild people that go off on a binge, spending at Target, Walmart, whatever, on these P cards. And there needs to be significant penalties if people use them inappropriately. And also, it cannot be used by union personnel unless you have an MOU with the union in place to include these penalties. Oftentimes we get into conflicts there that, well, it's not in the contract, so these penalties don't apply to us. If they don't agree to it, they shouldn't be issued a P card. It should be just non-union personnel. Okay, it must be used with approved suppliers from an approved list maintained by the purchasing department. The people shouldn't be going out willy-nilly buying it from everywhere. As an example, the borough does have a whole list of vendors that they put out and get approved every year by the Board of Mayor and Burgesses, and some of them are pretty trivial, like Ed's Hardware, for example. So developing a list is not that difficult, and that's one that should be maintained. If somebody feels that they ought to be on the list, purchasing can look at it and add it to them, and just keep a active living list of approved vendors where people aren't just arbitrarily using, Tom, Dick, and Harry's or Uncle Joe's department store. Transactions should be limited to less than or equal to $500, and accounts should be reviewed to ensure employees are not making back-to-back multiple $500 purchases. I see in the past, a lot of people try to skirt the $500 limit by $4.99. 2 minutes later, it's another $4.99 type of thing. So you need to make sure that's not happening with the same vendor and during the same time period. And lastly, all transactions must be approved by the supervisor and accounting, and both need to be held accountable to the rules that I mentioned earlier. And preferably, it ought to be reviewed by a electronic workflow credit card system. There are systems in place that the credit card charges flow through. The individual puts together an expense report. It flows through to the manager and then into accounting, so that everybody gets a look at it and you don't have rogue purchasing going on. So just a few words of wisdom based upon my experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is where I just drop
If there's any other members of the public that would like to provide public comment, please step to the podium. Seeing none, we'll move into the superintendent's report. Superintendent Montini.
Well, the report tonight will be on the quick side, given that there was some CDC just released some new information earlier this afternoon that we will review. Essentially, I shared with you the guidelines that were put out by the Connecticut DPH and State Department of Education and the Office of Early Childhood based on the operational strategies that they are recommending for the fall. We are slated to review them with the Naugatuck Valley Health Department, which has been our partner. We have a meeting next week where we will look at the guidelines and then modify and adapt our plans as appropriate. We're going to do that in conjunction with all of the members of the Naugatuck Valley Health District, which generally is Shelton up to Naugatuck, the 5 towns that comprise that health district. In light of that, essentially, there's not a lot of difference in this document. One of the major differences would be Test Mask Go, which would allow for the daily testing if you have minor symptoms without a fever. That's a slight variation from the current guidelines. But like I said, the CDC released some guidelines just a few hours ago that I'm sure the State Department and the DPH will review, incorporate them into their guidelines, which will, of course, trickle down to districts, and we'll update our return to school plans as appropriate. We were aiming to communicate the week before school, and unless we don't get guidelines until later than that, that will still be the case.
Any questions for the superintendent? So that brings us to our monthly reports, our facility use report. Does anyone have any questions on the facility use report? And our human resources report. Any questions on the HR report? Seeing none, that brings us to the enrollment report. Any questions on the enrollment report?
One of the things that, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yep.
One of the things that I want to highlight, this is the first time doing this since we rolled students over, meaning from last year to this year. We just did it on August 5th. We'll do it every Friday moving forward. We are in relatively good shape in regards to what we projected from our budget and staffing. We are looking at Hopbrook's 4th grade. We're tracking that and we're watching it closely. We have 3 classes of 26 in 4th grade over there. We still have a few weeks before school, so it could be that we make a move and try to address class size there. Most places, as you can see from the enrollment report, we're in pretty good shape. So we'll continue to track that. And if we make a change, I'll let you know.
Thank you. That brings us to old business. And we have a number of policies up for vote. As you see, there is a policy memo in there. So as we go through, that memo does explain them a little bit. So our first one is BOE Policy 5500, Student Privacy. And, yep, this policy and the associated notification have been revised in light of guidance by the U.S. Department of Education's Student Privacy Policy Office to clarify when the administration must obtain prior written consent of a parent or student before administering a student survey related to certain topics. So could I have a motion to approve BOE Policy 5500, Student Privacy, as proposed? We have a motion by Ms. Makowski. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Ms. Grant. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes. That brings us to BOE Policy 5202. Which is a policy. Yeah. That's a policy revised to make permanent a temporary COVID-19 provision concerning school compliance with health and safety protocols. Could I have a motion to approve BOE Policy 5202, Transportation, as proposed? We have a motion by Mr. Solozzi. Do we have a second? And a second by Mr. Scully. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. That brings us into BOE Policy 1330, the use of school facilities, which is a revised policy to add a new Section F, which requires users of school facilities to comply with any safety protocols. Can I have a motion to approve BOE Policy 1330, use of school facilities, as proposed?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Solozzi. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Scully. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. Us into BOE Policy 3320, Purchasing Procedures. That is a policy where the section was revised of the purchasing policy concerning the procurement of property and services under a federal award. Could I have a motion to approve BOE Policy 3320, Purchasing Procedures, as proposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering, I'm remiss in not having studied the procedure prior to today, but listening to the comments, I agreed with many of them. I'm wondering if we should table this and consider some of those comments and maybe add some beef to it and bring it back next month. So I'll make a motion to table BOE Policy 3320.
We have a motion by Mayor Hess and a second by Mr. Scully to table it, which, any discussion? I'm in favor of that. I appreciated Mr. Sheridan's comments. And any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that policy will be tabled and we will review that and get some more information. Right, Mr. Montini? Okay. So that brings us to BOE Policy 6640, Equitable Identification of Gifted and Talented Students. This was a policy created based on Public Act 21-199, which requires boards of education to adopt a policy for the equitable identification of gifted and talented students. So could I have a motion to approve BOE Policy 6640, Equitable Identification of Gifted and Talented Students as proposed?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Solozzi. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Makowski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? That brings us into BOE Policy 5210, Student Dress. As you know, this is a policy that was revised through the policy committee along with various clubs and organizations at the high school and student representation. And this is a policy that we discussed at our last meeting and that we came up with. Could I have a motion to approve BOE Policy 5210, Student Dress as proposed?
I will make that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Solozzi. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Makowski. Any discussion? Yep.
Well, one page is the.
Yes, the policy committee worked with the students and worked with each other and went through it pretty extensively.
I mean, I'll admit.
Also, I'm concerned about enforcement, which was mentioned before. If there are certain people that are going to enforce it and there are others that are not, it does create an equity issue still for it to be not distraction.
If I can say that, that was the concern of the board also, the policy committee. But it is written into the policy that the teachers, how the teachers are supposed to handle this, and that's part of the regulations. And this isn't a static policy. We will be reviewing it and looking for feedback on it. So we did the best that we could with the input, and we had lots of input. So we'll just keep an eye on it.
I agree with everything that was said, right, like what Ethel said, it is a static policy that if we hear things, we'll see what we can do. Josephine and Ruby could update us on the dress code, how it's going during our meetings. She was part of the process, so she had some good input. So any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. That brings us into discussion of board member vacancy and replacement. So, as we all know, we have received a number of applications to fill our vacant position. As you know, this is, important position to fill, an important role in our community. And we want to do what's right by the community and make sure that we go about this in a very careful and deliberate way. So moving forward, we kind of want to talk about how we want to go ahead, since we did receive so many applicants. And I'll just throw out my recommendation would be that we take our time, we interview every single applicant that we received. And I don't know if you guys want to do it through either a committee or the entire board. Because if it does take, because there are a good amount of applicants, if it does take some time to get all of us together, it could go on for a couple weeks. And if everyone's okay with that, then good. But I'll leave it up to you guys to let me know what you want to do. If anyone wants to offer any insight on their thoughts.
Well, you have to find a way to narrow down the list. I don't want to spend 2 weeks interviewing every candidate. But I would have no problem with a smaller group interviewing everyone and recommending, a fairly large number, however many they think are qualified for interviews with the full board.
I believe that everybody should be.
You want the full board to interview 16 candidates?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it takes. Majority of the board.
Yeah, I think that's what we kind of agree. We want to be transparent, so I think if that's the case, then the full board should be doing the interviewing. At least those that can make all the different, there'll be several sessions, and of course, everyone won't be able to make it, but at least that'll be the way that we are thinking that we should go. I think
So
it's-
when are we going to do this? I mean, that would require a full day practically.
Yeah, or over various days.
Half hour each.
Yeah, or over a couple of nights. That's why I said it could take
Yeah.
if 1 week we were only able to get all together one night that week, then we do a couple then, and then the next week we go meet as many times as we can, and
we
so
might have
forth.
candidates that don't want to interview.
and that's
Right.
true too.
Some people could have changed their minds. That's correct.
So you might end up only needing 2 at a time.
My suggestion would be, in an effort to streamline this a little bit, is just like we had to answer a series of questions for the paper and for various other outlets in order to, express our interest in, applying to run for the Board of Education. I think if we have similar or same group of questions, and what we could do as a suggestion is we could give it to the 16 candidates ahead of time, ask them to return it to us by a specific date, filled out, and then ask them to come in for, additional questions that we're going to ask on top of that, that information. So at least that information is all filled out. We have that information about these candidates, and then we could maybe streamline the process a little bit. And if they don't submit their questions within the certain time frame, could possibly, narrow the search. Or if people decide to kind of want to bow out gracefully, they just simply don't have to fill out the questionnaire.
So you're saying that we should give them pre-questions ahead
Just
of
like we
time?
had,
Uh,
just like
ahead
we
of time.
had.
Well, not for interviewing, though. Interviewing, usually you want the spontaneity. So on the spot, if we give them, they're doing research. I mean, anybody can do research. I would think we want to hear what they have to say on the spot.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to misunderstand what I was saying. I was asking that we give them that as an opportunity to come in, and then we could have additional questions just for them in here. But we also have to reference their responses from the questions as well to kind of help us guide our decisions.
Oh, we don't want to make it too complicated.
I don't think it is, Ethel. I was thinking like it's about 5 questions typically that we were asked,
Mhm.
and then right? It's about 5 questions typically that we're asked. If we have them, fill it out. And guys, I'm not married to this version of what I'm saying. I'm just giving a suggestion
Yeah.
to say that
Just-
I do want them to answer those questions that we had to answer because I think it's relevant to the position and the opportunity. Yep. And then we could talk to them more. We could have we have the exact same questions for all candidates that decide to, come forward.
So what is, I'm not sure I understand what the pre-questions are that you're going to be giving them that they have to respond to. Because they gave us their resume and their thoughts already.
Okay.
No, I'm just asking.
No, I'm just saying that, I'm trying to make it as equitable as what we had to go through for these candidates, considering we have such a large population. I want to make sure that we're doing everything
Yeah.
as equitable as possible.
Yeah, but we do have their resumes, we have their, their thoughts, their opinions, why they want to run. So I think just the interview questions when they get here.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Well,
Just
and
like
then,
for
and then I
regular.
guess what I was saying about having them pre-fill it out is so that those are tough questions to answer.
Right,
So they kind of need them
no,
well, Ethel, you're a seasoned educator, so I mean, it's not hard for you, but
Yeah.
maybe for some
Yeah.
people.
What superhero would you like to be?
What?
What superhero would you like to be?
Right, yeah.
That was one of the questions.
I didn't get that question.
I didn't get that one either. I know. I have an answer to that.
That was up at the high school.
So
Could have done something.
I don't know if either way, we have to have a preset set of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that gave us an easy, I guess if I'm not opposed. I was just trying to keep it
and more work.
fast. If somebody's trying to come up with those answers to those questions, it's going to take us a long time to go through it.
Only give them a half hour.
So what you said, about 5 questions, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I still think it should just be the questions, a regular interview. If they should have done their homework ahead of time. I mean, if this is something that they want to do, I'm sure a lot of these folks are very knowledgeable. So you're selling them short. You're saying they're not prepared.
No, I was actually just trying to save us time.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think that saves us time though.
Okay.
That's just, my opinion.
Okay, so it sounds like the board everyone to interview and the entire board.
Oh,
Everyone.
I don't know about that. You sure you don't want to do a committee? Nobody wants to do a committee?
No.
Okay.
I mean, unfortunately, like we said, there might be times where someone might not be able to show up. So,
So let me
You
ask
know,
you a
that will
question. If throughout these sessions, and these interviews, if certain board members don't get to participate in those interviews, are they still going to participate in the vote? They do. But I just think it's unfair. We're selling them short.
in person, I would, yeah. Zoom was awkward last time we did it 2 years ago. It wasn't the best.
It's challenging.
Yeah, you definitely don't.
I don't think we've been, this is unprecedented because we haven't been in a position where we've had this many candidates to fill, a 1-year void. We always have interviewed.
We had 9 at one point.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. We set it up 2 different nights. Half hour each. Questions. And then out.
Okay, so then tomorrow, I guess I will send out a few dates. And just let me know if you are available on those dates. If not, we'll send something else.
I also think we need to discuss the rubrics on how we're going to score these interviewees.
Yeah.
Because the difference between our interview questions is nobody really scored it.
Right.
When we're interviewing personnel, yep. I was thinking that too. follow the same kind of procedures that we do for interviewing principals and all, yep.
So like the rubric that they use for, okay, so if superintendent could send me a rubric and I could format that to fit our questions. I still need it, I believe Miss Grant sent me some questions that she would like to see asked during the process. I know, Elise, did
I
you?
want to.
Okay.
Yes, it's been.
I wasn't sure if I missed your email or not.
I apologize, it's cheer season.
Nope, I get it. Yes.
So are we gonna just customize questions that we think that we want to hear, or are we gonna come up with a set of questions?
A set of questions,
Okay.
but I was getting
If we've all-
questions from
Yeah.
individuals.
Ooh,
We
boy.
can
And then I
all
was-
review them.
That's good.
And then I was just gonna put some together because some of them might be common.
Yeah, we can review them.
And then, yeah, and then I'd send them
around
out
to
and
all
say,
of us. Yeah.
which I believe is what we did last time.
What's your concern, Jason? I can
No,
tell.
just check, hey, I
Yeah,
just
I
want to
can
make
tell.
sure that.
I can
that-
tell.
No, you're right. I'm just,
Yeah.
I
It's
want to
not
make
gonna-
sure that we're doing this the right way, that everybody gets a fair shake at being
Yeah.
heard.
If we run it the same way as Marilyn said, that we interview candidates. how
It
can
should be good, but
Right.
even those questions are really, really good questions. So I want to make sure that these
Yeah,
questions are.
and we submitted questions. So, we don't have to, you only want 5 questions, right?
Yeah,
I
five,
think.
I
I'm
think-
trying to
And
keep it
some of the
simple. I wanna make sure
questions
that-
will be the same coming from individuals. You can
yes,
combine them however, and you can send them around to all of us to look at, so you can say yay or nay, or,
Yep.
if you.
So we'll have to vote on questions. And then
I don't think we have to vote on questions.
we'll have to discuss what questions we're going to use, how many questions.
I think, yeah, I think we
Stick with
kind of,
5, okay.
Yep.
So, we're going to have to, work together to make sure that, it's going to be some compromise. People won't be able to get their questions in.
all know that, right, like if 5 questions, we're all gonna have different things. I think we kind of mentioned last time, we did want one question on there about social media. Right, and obviously we're gonna ask them to introduce themselves and do things like that. So, in background or, and their interest. So I think we kind of have some kind of general consensus or idea of what questions to ask. It's just a couple more detailed meat and potatoes kind of questions that give more info. And like I said, I know Miss Grant emailed me questions already, so I kind of have an idea of what at least she wants, but I obviously what I myself would ask. And then if you guys email me a couple questions each that
Don't,
you'd like to see.
don't say what I want, what I suggested.
Well, what I suggested,
You asked for suggestions.
yes.
Okay.
So be on the lookout for an email and make yourselves available.
There's no time, right? So you take it.
Yes, like I said, because of the volume that we did receive, yes. And we don't want to rush it because that's not fair to the candidates either to just interview and rush and get it done. We want to make sure we give them ample consideration.
Sounds good.
Okay. So then that brings us to new business. The elevator maintenance contract.
Okay. Last June, you may remember, we presented the 2 bids that we received for
My bad.
our elevator bid. We got 1 bid from Coney, we had 1 bid from Otis, and we awarded it to Otis. On July 5th, I received a letter from Coney protesting the bids because they had said that the Coney bid was delivered to me and the Otis bid was delivered via email. The bid that was delivered via email was received 1 minute before the deadline. I was sitting in the room with the Coney individual. The Coney individual saw that it came in on time, saw that it was not opened. I opened it, we presented it. So they sent us a letter of protest. I reviewed the letter with our attorney. The attorney feels that the protest was invalid. First of all, it wasn't submitted timely. According to law, we need to be notified within 10 business days from the day that they are notified that they haven't received the bid. They were notified on June 14th. 10 business days is June 28th. They filed the protest on July 5th. So it wasn't even timely filed, but there really is no reason to be concerned that the bid was emailed. So according to the attorney, he feels that we should just go ahead. We are fine going ahead and accepting the Otis bid. It is, however, the board's prerogative to decide to go out to bid based on our purchasing policy. So he did suggest that I just review this with you and see if you wanted to accept the, continue with Otis or go back out to bid.
So Bernice, you said you've awarded the bid, correct?
We did award the bid.
So you're asking us if we want to change your decision? What's the question?
Because Coney protested the bid,
Yeah,
Coney would like us to go out to bid again because they feel that it wasn't proper. So according to our attorney, it was proper and we don't need to go out to bid.
so what's your recommendation?
My recommendation is to stay with Otis.
Okay.
Because the protest was not filed timely and it's not a valid protest. Everything we did was proper. There were no problems.
So the motion, I think, is not to accept the Coney bid protest and support the contract award from June 9th, 2022 to Otis Elevator.
Correct.
All right, I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Hess and a second by Ms. Grant. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes to not accept the Coney protest. That brings us into implementation of a purchasing card program.
So
This is.
I think we should possibly table this one as well with the purchasing policy and look at both of them together. So I'll make a motion to table this item.
I agree. Do we have a second? We have a motion by Mayor Hess and a second by Mr. Scully. Any discussion?
Can we hear from Bernice first?
Yes.
I would just like to say that, first of all, this program is a program through the Association of School Business Officials. It is not a charge card program or a debit card program. But what I'm asking for tonight is permission to enter into discussion with the bank to create a program. So they will not even talk to me and show me their system and let me know what the parameters can be until I get your approval and your vote that we can go ahead and pursue this. So I'm not asking to start. I'm not asking to get cards and send them out. My thoughts are to distribute them to a very select small group of individuals. It's not something that I'm going to take and deliver to all of our secretaries and all of our custodians. It's a very select group of people, but I can't create the procedure or the policy until I see the product. So what I'm asking for tonight is for your approval to begin discussions with the Bank of Montreal. The resolution is attached to the to board docs, but I will not be creating, I will not be issuing any P cards to anyone until I have a full plan and then I come back to you to present it. Sure, it says, whereas the Naugatuck Board of Education in the Borough of Naugatuck has the authority to to enter into an agreement with the Bank of Montreal for purchasing cards. Now therefore be it resolved by the Naugatuck Board of Education that the chairman is authorized to enter into an agreement with the Bank of Montreal to secure procurement cards for each authorized employee of the municipality under such terms and conditions as approved by the board. The Naugatuck Board of Education authorizes the business manager of Naugatuck Public Schools, Bernice Risk, to execute a P-card program agreement on its behalf. Okay, well, when I reached out to Bank of Montreal, they would not speak to me until they got the resolution. They said that's the first policy. Okay, sure. It's not a matter of saving money. It's really it's a matter of convenience, but I'm not talking about a convenience where I give a secretary a card so that every time they need supplies or they need paper, they run out to Walmart and buy paper. It's not that kind. For example, our new telephone system that we have installed right now, we cannot pay for by check. We have to pay for by a credit card. So that would be one use for this, that we would get a P card and it would be assigned to someone in IT, and when the invoice comes, they will approve it and they will make the payment on the P card. There are some smaller companies that just don't take take checks. They require credit cards, and we don't have a credit card, nor do I want to get a credit card. So this is a controlled way for those purchases. It's not something that's going to save money. Pardon? We have no credit cards. No. It's not a good control to have credit cards. You could have an account. We have an account at Home Depot. We have an account at, yeah, we have accounts, but there are smaller, you know, a lot of times IT, and I use IT because they're really one of the biggest reasons that I want to get this. You know, very often they will look around and try to get cheaper prices for parts. And some of the companies are just smaller companies that require a credit card. So they put their credit card and they pay for it themselves, and then they ask for reimbursement. That causes problems as well. You don't want to do that too many times. So that's really what I was asking for. It's more of a convenience than anything. Pardon? A charge to us? No, there is no cost to us. No, there is no percentage fee or anything like that. No, it's not.
Did they require that it's this resolution that's passed? Like if we just did a motion to authorize you to discuss with them?
This was the example. They said it had to contain at least these words. It could contain more. So I used their example. I mean, I will be honest with you, there is no intent to issue any P cards to any individual or any code of conduct for them to sign until I review it with the board. But well, we have, right. We have to create the system. We have to create the cards. It's correct. Correct. Okay.
So there's a motion right now on the floor to table it. But we can't get more information unless we authorize her to discuss with them.
Tabling the implementation of the system, but we're allowing her to go
To-
ahead to.
Yes, that's what we want to do. Yes.
There's already a motion on the table.
Well, she doesn't have the permission. They need it to us to vote on to give her permission.
We both take cards.
So I would,
I'll amend my motion.
Okay.
We table this issue, but allow the business manager to proceed with getting more information and negotiating with the Bank of Montreal to get the necessary information to proceed with the plan, subject to final review of the rules and the manner in which the cards are going to be utilized.
Now, somebody different has
Okay.
to second or?
No.
First, we have to. He's amending his motion. So I gotta amend it.
I'm going to withdraw my first motion and make that my.
And that's your new okay. So we have,
Now we're just gonna.
Well, we gotta.
Now, he just made a second motion. Okay.
yep. So he withdrew his first motion, made that second motion. Do we have a second? We have a second by Mr. Scully. Miss Santana. Did you? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Any discussion on that new motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. Thank you, Bernice. That brings us to the Head Start COLA. And who would like to make that motion? We have a motion by Ms. Grant. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Makowski. Any discussion? We currently are. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes.
Let me just say that not all of the employees at Central Avenue are related to these programs.
Right.
We have
And that brings us to the ACES membership agreement. Could I have a motion to approve the 2022-23 annual membership to participate in area cooperative educational services and approve the representative and the alternate to serve on the ACES governing board? The representative is Ms. Grant.
Unless there is someone who has a passion and just burning desire to be the representative, I will step aside for you. No, it's really a great board. It really is.
And-
they do a lot of great things and.
And who's the alternate? Okay, that's what I thought. And the alternate is Mr. Scully. Does anyone want to make that motion? We have a motion by Ms. O'Donnell. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Malone. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Congratulations, Ms. Grant. You're our new our continuing representative. That brings us to the approval of the minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the June 9th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Ed? We have a motion by Ms. Makowski. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. O'Donnell. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 14th, 2022 Special Board of Education meeting? Motion by Mr. Solozzi. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Ms. Makowski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? Noted that Mr. Scully abstains. That brings us to communications. We have a bid waiver.
Back side of the building, the school, as you go around the backs of the driveway. So I had a call from a concerned parent of students there who didn't give me their name and said that the building was not in good conditions, severe infestation of mildew and mold on the back and the front. So Todd and I hopped on it and got a company to do as quick as they could before school started again. So it's been completed, and that's the reason for the bid waiver.
Didn't we also just do kind of a resurfacing of that whole back area, or are we talking about the same thing?
That's a separate part of the building that we're doing the ceiling. Reached out to 4 vendors this week. I've got numbers coming in next week for that. That's the whole seal coating of all those classrooms along the other part. This is kind of the L shape of the building.
Right.
It's on that. That was two different things.
The L shape. Was this inside or outside?
Outside.
This wasn't a cosmetic thing, this was more of a,
It looked bad, yeah. So,
but did this resolve it cosmetically as well as safety-wise?
both. So, it's hard to know if it infested through the building. You'd have to dig through the building to find out, but it's gone on the outside. We haven't seen anything on the inside. So we're being more proactive on these things to get rid of them before we see things metastasize. So
Okay, understood. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions on the bid waiver? Seeing none, that brings us to adjournment. Before we adjourn, I do just want to say, be on the lookout for an email and give me dates. So could I have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion by Ms. O'Donnell, a second by Mr. Scully. All those in favor? Any opposed? We're adjourned.
We did hit that with such authority.